a lot of experts here to answer all of your questions, from direct assistance and relief to debris removal, all the topics that are top of mind for you in this particular moment in our recovery process. I want to highlight just a couple of things before we get started. The Household Relief Fund that the county has created, which you can apply for as a resident who is impacted by these fires. Those applications are due tonight. You can find out more information about that fund and how to apply at recovery.lacounty.gov. If you haven't already applied, if you need more information, but please do so by tonight so we can consider your application and make sure to provide you with the essential services that not only you need, but you might deserve at this time. And it's really intended to provide you with some additional assistance outside of your insurance benefit or FEMA support or other ways that you're being supported during this time. I also want to highlight the work that and focus that all of our partners have joined us in at the county in focusing on our beaches. I know this is a top priority for so many of our residents, as it is for us. And we're working to make sure that we have the authority, especially on those coastal properties that have so many people concerned, especially in the Malibu area, that we get those ROEs back from those private property owners to make sure that we're able to do debris removal as quickly and safely as possible. So if you see someone whose property is not yet cleared, some of that has to do with the fact that we haven't yet received all the ROEs. So please encourage people to turn them in. Even if you are opting out of the government program, you still need to let us know how you're going to proceed in that cleanup process. And we want to make sure that that our partners at the EPA are working with you too if phase one had been deferred on your property for household hazardous materials removal. We're also in our office making individual calls to those property owners. So join us in that effort to make sure that we're encouraging our neighbors to think about the community impact of the cleanup and how we need to be moving with all deliberate speed to get this cleanup done to protect our communities and our waters. I also want to remind everyone that every Wednesday we join together at about 6 o'clock. I was a little late in my return home after a meeting today, so thank you for allowing this meeting to be a little delayed tonight. These past live streams and our past conversations are all archived on our YouTube channel, so you can find them there. And we're just going to jump right into Q&A tonight. No scheduled presentations, because I know this is time best used answering your questions directly. So to kick it off, let's start with our partners at DCBA. How do I appeal a rejection from LA County's Household Relief Grant Fund since it was done on time and I'm in the Palisades fire zone?
Hello, Supervisor. Thank you for having me today. This is Ana Karen Nunez, Anna for short. The intent of the Household Assistant Grant is to assist the county residents who have been affected by the fire and physically displaced as a result. In order to qualify, there are three criteria that we're going to be looking at. Primarily, if the individual's home was completely destroyed, if the person lives or their primary residence was in the impacted area and their property was partially damaged, making it uninhabitable. And also if there was a death as a result of the fires. So if somebody did apply and they got a rejection letter, or an email, they have 30 days to respond. And there's a call center they can call. The phone number we can drop in the chat is 888-788-0335. They will be open 8 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. And they need to do it within 30 days of receiving the rejection letter, or else we will assume that the person is no longer interested and the application may not proceed. But they can appeal if they feel that they should have gotten the grant and were denied.
Okay, and when they receive a rejection notice, is any information about how to appeal included in that notice?
I believe it should be, but I can double check, and let you know. But for the most part, we can provide the phone number, I'm sorry, yes, I did confirm, yes, the information as to why they are denied is on there. But again, if they feel that, it's in error or they do qualify, they can reach out and file the appeal. There may be additional documentation that is requested, just to clarify or further investigate the situation. And then, based on that, there will be a decision issued.
Well, and I'm glad that you clarified who is eligible. I'm glad that you also clarified that you're telling people why they may have gotten a rejection notice. But in that rejection notice, does it also explain how to appeal? Because if not, I would ask that you follow up with people to let them know there is an appeal process. Obviously, we want to answer that question here, and that will reach whoever listens to us tonight and going forward. But I want to make sure people who are seeking that assistance know that they have that opportunity to appeal.
Yes, I believe that information is in the email.
Okay, good to know. We'll move on to our next question. This is for our insurance commissioner. What if we just aren't getting answers or hearing back at all from our insurance? How does the California Department of Insurance keep insurance companies accountable?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Supervisor, for the question. The Department of Insurance is a regulatory agency. We're tasked with enforcing California's insurance laws and regulations. So if those insurance companies are not following those laws and regulations, we can investigate. We can do a market conduct review. We can look into their books and see if they're operating as they should be under the law. Now, as for those who haven't been in getting proper communication from your insurance companies, it definitely is a frustrating process when you've filed claims, you haven't heard anything back in some time. You're waiting for things to be resolved. And so just as a heads up, typically insurance companies, they by law they have 15 days to acknowledge your claim, and then they have up to 40 days to investigate that claim and provide an approval or denial. Now, it has been a little over 2 months since those fires, and I'm sure those timelines have been passed for a lot of those consumers out there. So in those scenarios, if you haven't been receiving responses in a timely fashion as required by law by your insurance companies, that's when you need to contact us. You need to file a request for assistance with us, give us a call so we can contact the insurance companies on your behalf, investigate your claim, and see what we can do to help make that process as quickly and smoothly as possible.
Okay. Uh, I know that people will appreciate that assistance. There's been a lot of frustration expressed, and I know you're really helping to navigate that. And thank you for the town hall that you hosted at Skirball to assist in many thousands, it sounded like, of residents who came out seeking help. I'm going to go to our captain, Captain C2. I understand there is a new pass for traveling on the PCH. Will the original resident passes still be good, or do they have to get a new one?
I thank you for that question. No, all the passes, so the green pass and then the prior pass that the city of LA passed out, those passes work. What we wanted to do is create one unified pass. And so what's changed is at the relief center, you can also, the Malibu residents can also get a pass there. And then on, I believe it's Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at the Malibu City Hall or the Santa Monica College. You can go to our website and look at it. The Palisades residents and Malibu residents can get a pass from those locations. So what we try to do is really work with the city and create one unified pass and make it easier for the community.
Okay, I'm gonna stick with you, Captain, and then tag to Caltrans because I think this question goes to you both. I heard PCH is closed again. Can someone please explain why PCH continues to open and close? And I know that this is a collective effort in decision making. So, Captain, I'm going to start with you, and then I'm going to go to Caltrans.
Yeah, we're going to be seeing a lot of this with rains. As you know, what happened in February, we saw a lot of the mudslides, the hillsides come down. We actually saw a car that got pushed into the ocean. And so it's out of caution for the community and working with the engineers from Caltrans as well as Public Works. So our job is to kind of keep everybody safe. And we're going to see this during our rain times, and I'll let Caltrans take it from there.
But and I
Oh,
I will just
please.
I'll go to Caltrans, and if you have anything to add to this, I will just say, I heard frustration from some residents who are impacted by this, who said, this rain isn't like the previous rains. It's lighter. It's not, it's not the same intensity. Like, are we going to treat any announcement of rain as like we're shutting it all down, or how we're like, give us a little bit of insight into how you're having that conversation, so we really have a sense that it's needed and not just out of an abundance of caution.
Yeah, so if you noticed last week, we had rain, right? And we didn't close PCH. So again, it's working with the National Weather Service, working with the engineers from Public Works and Caltrans, and taking all that data together and say what is the probability that our hillsides could come down and there could be mud and debris flow, and lives could be at risk and go into the ocean. So we're very cautious in how we do this. Again, last week we didn't close it and we did have rain. So that's kind of how we make the decisions all together.
Okay, Nathan, I'm going to go to you. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Supervisor. And the captain's absolutely right. Uh, we're expecting heavy rainstorms in this case, and as little as 1 inch per hour could be enough to dislodge debris and mud from the hillside. As we know, PCH, Topanga Canyon, the whole area is surrounded by canyons with watersheds that empty out onto PCH. So in this case, it is out of an abundance of caution. But we have the example of just last month when sustained rainstorms led to mudslides in multiple locations on Pacific Coast Highway, and a total of 33,000 cubic yards of debris washed onto Topanga Canyon. To put that in context, that's fully 2,000 dump trucks full of debris. So we don't intend to, we don't want to repeatedly open and close the the route, but in this case, it's need to be done out of public safety concerns.
Okay. Well, I think the more that you can help us understand what you're actually trying to mitigate, it helps people really understand what you're solving for. Because sometimes, they might be able to see if there's an impact on PCH, but they might not be able to see what it is you're solving for. So that information is really helpful. Do you have an idea of when PCH might fully reopen? I think there's sort of been a decision about a longer term, some of those longer term impacts and how you're handling them. So when is it just finally going to be open?
We can't say with the fluctuations in weather and the ongoing recovery work. It's hard to put a date or time on it. Caltrans has never released a timeline for the full reopening of the freeway, or excuse me, the highway. We do hope to reassess on Thursday, tomorrow, to see the extent of any damages if there were, and hopefully reopen on a limited basis on Friday. But
This is Thursday, like tomorrow or next
yes,
Thursday?
yeah, Thursday tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, but we don't have a timeline for the full reopening of the highway.
Okay. I know that there has been some limited access. And so do you have a sense of um, once the rains pass, going back to that limited access, is that expected, do you think, by Monday if things look good when you're out there tomorrow and Friday?
Our geotechnical experts will need to evaluate the roadway. If there are mudslides, there could be damage underneath the roadway that we can't see just with a cursory assessment. So we hope to open it by Friday, but it'll just take reassessment and work with the county, obviously.
Obviously. And I would just offer, and I know that we're going to continue to push for this, but just so I say it here, I think predictability is really what people are looking for. Like businesses can know if they are going to be able to be operational if they know it's like a 2 month impact or something, but just the not knowing is brutal. And while people are suffering so much already, giving them the hard truths is better than giving them nothing. So I think the more information that you can provide us and as you're communicating with the community, the better, because it really helps people make informed decisions about their community and their businesses. So we're really counting on you in our engagement with the community to be able to help work with us on that. And I know the county will continue to engage with you on that.
Yeah, absolutely sympathetic to people's livelihoods. At Caltrans, safety is our number one priority. And unfortunately, this situation has presented myriad safety concerns, and we're working through them as quickly as we can. We're really grateful for the county, federal government, and other parts of the state government for helping us get through it.
I appreciate that. And it, hopefully we're getting through the rains and back to think, it sounds like an ideal situation will be back to reopening potentially on Friday, but maybe not. It's all based on the evaluation that you will do. But if there's another set of rains, is this sort of how you're going to handle it, this kind of closure? Or, what should people expect if rains are predicted? What should they be prepared for? Or is it just sort of every time there's a rain prediction, you get together and it's sort of dependent upon what those specific circumstances are?
It's highly dependent on the circumstances. In this case, we do see significant risk of mudslides and flooding. In fact, Caltrans has activated its emergency operations center 24/7, or not 7, but 24 hours a day for the next couple of days, because we do see this as a serious situation. So every situation won't be the same. We do evaluate based on forecasts from the National Weather Service. And in this case, we do see the need to close it fully.
Okay, Captain, is there anything else in those questions that you want to add to what Nathan shared?
No, I just, my heart breaks. I know the inconsistency is very hard. And that's why, like last week, we were talking about closing it. And when we further, like it's kind of 72 hours out when we really get to kind of hone into that, what the weather is going to be like. And I'm glad we didn't close it last week. And so that's kind of what we do, is just put safety first. And this is going to kind of be what we do while we're in this rain season. So we appreciate all the support and the patience of the community.
I know something that's been surfaced in the past, and I think we've worked it out. But can you tell us both? Is it Caltrans that's leading on our communications? Where should people go to get real-time information about the status of the PCH, whether they're able to travel through, PCH opening, closure updates? Where should they go for that most up-to-date information?
Caltrans operates the roadway, and you'll be able to get the most real-time information on our X page. That's where we keep our real-time updates.
Okay, so if somebody's not on X, is there another way that they can find out?
Yeah, well, I can share my information. Nathan Bass. I'll include my information in the chat box once I'm done speaking. Off the top of my head, I'm not able to provide a link other than, I guess, our Caltrans Quick Map. It's a website, Caltrans Quick Map. If you look it up on the internet, that'll provide the most up-to-date information as well.
Okay, Captain, I see you muted yourself, so I'm going to assume you're in agreement with that as the place to go for people to get the right information.
Yeah, so we really focused on doing the one message, and
Yeah.
that one message always comes with if it's PCH, it'll always come from Caltrans, and then we will post it on our Lost Hills, all of our social media platforms as well.
Okay, good. Helpful to know, and thank you for that. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. This question is, why have beachfront and coastal homes in Malibu not been addressed first, given the environmental risk in the city's fire cleanup efforts? So I'm going to start, and then I'm going to hand it over to Public Works. What I know about this is something that is very frustrating to us. And as I shared a little bit when we first began, these coastal properties are complicated situations for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is we don't want to see all of that, potentially impacting our beaches and our coastline. We obviously want to prioritize those properties. And in fact, for the properties for which we've received ROEs, U.S. Army Corps is going ahead where they have been authorized to do so and clearing those properties. We are working with property owners, and my office is even actively calling out to property owners who haven't yet responded. The trick is that FEMA has given the deadline of the end of March for those ROE applications to come in. So we really need people to turn them in order for that debris removal to be happening. We need private property owners to grant that authority to come in. Now, after March 31st, that's another conversation. But we know right now that we are doing all that we can to get those property owners to work with us to grant us that authority to do that. Emiko, I'm going to turn to you to cover whatever else I've missed that I know Public Works is tackling to try and address this issue.
Thank you so much, Supervisor. Just the only thing to add is that properties that are near ecologically sensitive areas are being prioritized, including those located near sensitive ecosystems, like the scenario you mentioned. And we recognize that. We believe it's important as well, and we have been working closely with Army Corps in order to get those moving. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I know it's very concerning to us. We are from Beaches and Harbors, our Department of Beaches and Harbors, as well as our Department of Public Health and some of our community partners like Heal the Bay, watching all of the impacts, monitoring to make sure that we aren't seeing some of the more significant impacts we fear. But we also know that moving to clear these properties is the best possible thing that we can be doing to make sure that debris isn't going into our waters. And we also have to work with Caltrans for any potential impacts on the PCH. So it is a coordinated effort, but we really need our private property owners to be our partners in it to get this process moving. So going on to our next question, this is for our Army Corps partners. When will Army Corps begin removing debris on multi-unit lots? These lots provide more housing per square foot than any other lots in the Palisades, and they need to be cleared.
Hi, good evening. This is Sarah Coles with Corps of Engineers. I'm the resident engineer out at the Palisades Emergency Field Office.
Hi.
So I know the question was about multi-unit parcels. Those are a part of our Phase 2 debris removal program. So as we get ROEs for those types of properties, they will get integrated into our process. We will do our site assessments on those processes, there are other assessments necessary, and then those will get scheduled to have debris removal crews come out and work on those. So it is coming. It is part of the process.
Okay, so there are multifamily properties that you already have ROEs for that you're scheduling teams to go out right now?
I am not tracking any that we have received yet, but as those do come in, yes, they will get integrated into that schedule.
Okay. So I know that that's something that people will be tracking, and we will also check in with Public Works to make sure that they don't have them, that you have them, so that way you're able to proceed. And another question for you: how can the timeline generally be sped up on clearing lots? People are really wanting to see that progress, not only because they want to get back onto their properties, but from an emotional standpoint, really seeing some of these lots finally get cleared gives people hope that we're actually going to make progress and they're going to be able to return home. So how can what is your advice, and what are you doing to make sure we are moving with all deliberate speed, minding safety, protecting our communities from health impacts and environmental impacts, but how can we move fast so we have that hope?
Yeah, so we're doing everything we can to move as quickly as possible while also moving as safely as possible. That is one of the biggest key items that we're taking into consideration. We also want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to protect the environment and operating within all the required rules and regulations. So with that, we are actively ramping up our debris crews that we have on site. As of today, we have 50 crews operating, and that crew amount is being added to on a daily basis. We're looking at 1 to 2 crews added every single day. So we are doing our part to ramp up progress. From a homeowner perspective, I know that whenever we are making our 72-hour and 24-hour calls, just the responsiveness of homeowners, if there's anything that we need from them, if they can be responsive to anything that we're asking for, to move along with from the 72-hour, 24-hour phone calls into the debris removal phase. And then just with that, if anyone is interested in seeing specifics of their properties, I want to refer everyone to our public viewer, which can be located at the recoverylacounty.gov website. And that public viewer will provide status on a parcel or EPN basis if anyone's interested in looking up the specific status of their parcel.
Okay. Now you said there are about 50 teams, but there are thousands of properties. So help me understand how that's an acceptable number, given the magnitude of what you have to address. Like how do we hire more teams and get moving faster?
Correct. So we are working that day in and day out. We are exponentially ramping up. So it's 50 crews today, but every single day that we're out there, we are adding more and more crews to that team. To eventually, within the next couple of weeks, we're going to try to get to 100, and then beyond that, as time progresses. So we are doing everything we can to increase that number of crews.
And is it like, do you need referrals of teams who can do this work with you to grow faster? I mean, knowing that we're only getting to about 100 teams in a few weeks from now, I just want to make sure that you have all the support that you need, and we're getting you all of the teams and workers that are able to do this work, so we can move. Is it only can you only manage a certain number of teams at a time? Like how can you give me a little bit of insight into that?
Yes. So as it stands now, we have a ramp up plan, and we have identified the subcontractors that we're going to be bringing on to fill in that ramp up plan. So at this time, we don't require any additional information. There is a high end limit for crews that we can manage, but we are nowhere near that limit, and will not be anywhere near that limit in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I know one of the reasons that people have expressed a desire or that they're considering opting out is just because they think it's going to move faster. So I just want to make sure that you're hiring up as quickly as possible. If you need the county's support in that, let us know. But we need to make sure that we're getting teams out there quickly. And I'm glad that we focused on this question so we can, really highlight where we're at on that. One clarification that people need, because U.S. Army Corps has said that you will clear multi-unit properties, but they've also heard that townhomes are not eligible. Is that true? And if so, why not? Can you give a little clarity about multifamily, the different kinds, and specifically townhomes?
Yeah, so to my knowledge, townhomes are considered private property, so that would fall under our private property debris removal program, and it would be eligible.
So townhomes are eligible.
Correct.
Are condos eligible?
To my knowledge, yes. So that would be considered private property. And so that would fall under our private property debris removal program.
Okay. Are senior, like assisted living homes, they're considered residential, but I know they're also a business. Are those considered residential? Are you clearing those?
Yep. So that one I would need to check on and follow up through PAO because that one you're getting into the realm of commercial property. So that one I do not have a definitive answer on.
Okay. And apartments, I know you consider to be businesses. So apartment owners have been directed to SBA for assistance if their insurance isn't providing for that. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I know that there's also questions around the mobile home parks and whether you're clearing those. So do you have a status update on that?
Yep. So mobile home parks, private property, those would be eligible under our private property debris removal program. So likewise, as we get ROEs, those will get integrated into the program.
Okay. I'm going to go back to Public Works. How will the county enforce and monitor private contractors testing for asbestos and removing it safely? We know that for phase two, if you opt into the Army Corps, they've made the commitment that they're doing that work following phase one from the EPA, doing all of that testing. How do we know if people opt out of that service and hire private contractors? How do we know that the very same things are being done by those private contractors?
Yes, thank you. So as part of the opt-out permit process, any asbestos must be abated before debris removal can begin. So the opt-out permit requires an assessment by a certified asbestos consultant to be conducted. And if any asbestos is found, it must be removed by a licensed asbestos abatement contractor. And then a copy of the consultant report documenting abatement must be loaded onto the county's Epic LA system. So all this is part of the fire debris removal permit for opt-out individuals. And in order for the permit to be issued, all of those things must have to be uploaded.
Okay, so you're checking licenses, you're checking documentation from those licensed reports to make sure that it's accounting for everything that is supposed to be followed in the instructions that you're providing to those private contractors.
That's correct.
And I heard that you're requiring household hazardous certification for um, for private property owners in phase two who are opting to go with private contractors, even if it's not a phase one deferred property. So is that true? And if so, why is that required?
So part of the debris removal permit, number one, you must submit verification, confirmation that HHM has been removed. So let's say, for example, EPA removed your HHM, or if it got deferred, Army Corps removed it. Even if those things happen, you still, as part of removing fire ash and debris, a licensed contractor with a hazardous substance removal certificate is what's needed. So this is for removal of fire ash and debris. That's the certificate that the contractor would need to hold.
And that was true during Woolsey and other fires, or is it just this one that you required that for?
That was true for other fires as well.
Okay, so that's standard in how we do it. And if your home is found to have asbestos, um, can the Army Corps take the debris completely away?
So maybe that's a question for Army Corps. I believe they do asbestos testing, chip testing, and other testing, but
Okay. So I'll go to the Army Corps. If someone's home is found to have asbestos when Army Corps comes onto the property for phase two, um, can the Army Corps take that debris away?
Absolutely. Yes. So part of that initial hazardous site assessment is doing testing to test for asbestos specifically. And if that testing comes back positive, we take all the necessary precautions to package the asbestos properly and get it transported to a landfill that is certified to take that type of debris.
Okay, so that wouldn't go to the landfills that are allowed to take phase two debris because that's a different kind of thing, right? So
Yeah, so we have different landfills for different types of material. So the landfills that are taking asbestos material aren't necessarily the same ones taking fire ash debris. It is two separate streams.
it's based on how they're licensed, because I know that there have been
Correct.
concerns that some of that material from phase one that's considered hazardous might be going to those landfills, but you've made clear we're only taking that debris to the specially licensed facilities. It's not just
Correct.
landfill. Okay, good. Now we have lots of concern, not just for our coastal properties, but all throughout the fire burn footprint, from neighbors who are concerned that their neighbors haven't opted in or out and that they won't do so by the deadline. So for both Army Corps and Public Works, how are you working together and what is the plan? When that March 31st deadline hits, then what?
so the March 31st deadline is very, very important for people to decide whether they're going to submit an ROE and go with the Army Corps, or if they're going to opt out of the government-run program and submit a fire debris removal permit. And it is important that everybody, we're all on the same timeline, if you will, because what we anticipate is that by the time the Army Corps finishes their phase 2 debris removal, we want to be on track with the opt-out individuals to be relatively along the same time period so that debris removal can go progress on a community-wide basis in order to help with the rebuilding.
But what happens if they've done neither? You've never gotten an ROE from them to say they've opted in or I'm opting out. Those two scenarios we know. They're on their way on some, they're at least in the queue, there's a timeline happening. But what happens with the people who haven't communicated with us? What do we do then?
Okay, so after the deadline passes, residents who do not opt in are considered as having opted out. And there are, right now our focus really is to work with the ROEs to get them over to the Army Corps as quickly as possible. But one of our next immediate steps is to think about how to compel people to complete cleanup, whether it's through the government process or through the opt-out process. So those discussions are underway.
Okay, so I want to turn to our Army Corps partners to get a little clarity on that. So if somebody doesn't opt in by March 31st, is there any version of a scenario where U.S. Army Corps is helping them clear in phase 2?
That is not something that we presently are tracking or something that we are planning to do at the current phase.
Okay.
But that is something that we would be coordinating with county on further down the line.
Okay, so what happened in Hawaii, for example? Like, I'm sure you have properties that don't submit, or any other fire where you've been on site that properties don't submit by that timeline. Then what has happened in other jurisdictions? Can you give us a for example?
Yeah, so I was not involved with the Maui fires at all, so I can't speak to what was done in Maui. I don't know if PAO would be able to answer that question. Yeah, but I unfortunately
Okay.
don't have an answer for that one.
Can I go to PAO?
Hi. I just wanted to clarify one point that was mentioned earlier.
Okay.
I think Sarah, who actually has the same name as I do right now, had mentioned that some of the apartments and condos and townhomes were covered through private property debris removal, which not all are. There are special cases in which some of those properties would be covered. However, the mass majority of them are considered commercial properties, businesses, and therefore are not. So really, an eligibility determination needs to occur through FEMA. So an ROE does need to be submitted for properties like that to be able to make that determination. But for the most part, most of them are considered commercial.
Okay, can I get specific with you just so I'm clear about that? So, because I know there were a lot of different distinctions. So I'm clear that apartments are considered a business, and even though they're multifamily housing, and so they need to go to, if their insurance doesn't cover it, they have to go to SBA for additional assistance, correct?
I can't answer for what they have to do in place of it, but all I can say is if they don't qualify under FEMA's guidelines, then we're not able to perform debris removal.
Okay. Is there ever a scenario where you're doing debris removal for an assisted living property?
I'm not able to answer that one. It would really be contingent on whether or not it's private, and then also whether or not it's considered to be on public property. There are some churches, some schools, there are some facilities sometimes that happen to be on public property. Again, the land is public property. So those are special scenarios where we're able to do debris removal because they fall in that category.
Okay, so you would encourage somebody in that situation if it's in question that they would apply, and then you'll review it to see if they are eligible?
Yeah, it would be after they apply, that determination will be made according to FEMA guidelines, and if they are eligible, we'll be more than happy to be able to um, conduct debris removal. We want this for everyone, so the more people who are qualified and eligible, we absolutely want to do debris removal for them.
Okay, so now the other two categories, condominiums, I've heard consistently until maybe tonight that condos are included. So are you saying tonight that they aren't included, that there may be cases where they're not included?
I think for the most part, most of the ones that we've had are commercial. I'm not aware of any that we've had so far that meet the standard of being private property.
Okay, and I know that we've heard from both of the colonels in the past that condominiums would be included, so that's a change. So I got to figure out why that's changing, because I know that we've communicated that to condo owners in past conversations, and I think they are functioning with the understanding that they will be included. And then the townhome distinction is also new to me as well. So there are now possibly cases where condos and townhomes won't be included.
Yeah, I think what's happened is there was a revision to some of the guidelines in January. So there's our FEMA council as well as our headquarters level council are getting a determination on that to be able to clarify. But previously, they were not considered private property; they were considered commercial. I
Okay.
can follow up on that one,
Yeah, I
but
think we need to, because I know there have been several places, and there are probably, in fact, archived conversations where this very question has been addressed. So I want to make sure if something is changed or there's a different interpretation, that we're getting people that information as quickly as possible. And then to go back to the original question, do you have a sense of what happened in past fires, in a situation where people didn't opt out or opt in by the deadline? Like, what did other jurisdictions do with properties that just were non-responsive?
ultimately, it comes down to the county. The ROE program is the county's program, and you have to think of the Corps of Engineers as an executing agent. We're a hired service. We come in and do the work on properties that we were told these guys are go, they're green, they're eligible, these are the homeowners, they've opted in, and we execute. So for us, it comes down to what the county gives us. In Maui, for instance, the county worked with people who were quote unquote stragglers, where maybe they had some problems with the house was caught up in maybe someone passed in the fires, and now that property had to go through probate or whatnot. So there were instances like that, but also in Maui, they didn't have a deadline. So I think it ultimately will come down to the county and what their determination is in terms of what they will and won't allow for people who do not sign up by the deadline.
Good to know. I am happy to make sure that we get that clarity ASAP. All right, I'm going to move on to our next question. Is there a deadline for commercial properties to have debris removed if they choose to opt out? Now, I think commercial properties are not included as part of the U.S. Army Corps program, correct?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay, so maybe I'll go to Public Works then. Is there a deadline for commercial properties to have debris removed if they choose to opt out? People are frustrated because their delays are also preventing residents from returning. People don't want to come back and live next to a property that hasn't had that process, hasn't had that phase 2 process gone.
Yes, that's very understandable. So generally speaking, for people who choose to opt out of the government run process and obtain a fire debris removal permit to have their own contractor do it, the deadline to remove fire debris is June of 2025.
And there's no opt out for commercial properties, right? Like there's no opt out. So for commercial properties, does that same deadline apply, end of June?
So generally speaking, any fire debris, let's see, opt out. Okay, commercial properties. I think with regards to commercial properties, that's another bucket where discussions are still currently underway as to eligibility
Eligibility for what?
for the government-run program.
Okay, but I think we just heard from Army Corps that that commercial properties are not eligible.
Right. Yeah, I believe, Supervisor, the discussions are underway. I would need to get back to you on that. I apologize.
All right, so I'll make sure my team is working with you to get that clarity, because we have our residential properties on the timeline, and I want to make sure, I think that kind of clarity of timeline for our commercial property owners is also necessary, because we have to chart our progress and make sure that we're helping people understand how we're getting our communities back to some semblance of normalcy, and the ability to redevelop and come back home. So. Now, I think we talked about townhomes and whether they're eligible. So we've touched on that. And today we now have a little bit of confusion around townhomes and condos. So we're going to come back and get that clarity, work with U.S. Army Corps to figure out how that interpretation changed and how we're going to help those property owners. So let's go to our next question, which is road closures are causing homeowners and businesses in Topanga and Malibu to lose tenants and revenue. They need help with mortgage forbearance, extensions, and deferrals. What options are available for these homeowners and businesses who are really in trouble? So I'm going to have a little bit of a combination here. I'm going to go to DCBA first, and then I also want to ask our assessor and our representative from the insurance commissioner's office what options are available. So DCBA, will go to you first.
I'm so sorry, Supervisor. Can you repeat the question because you got cut off in the middle? So I
Yes,
didn't hear everything.
road closures are causing homeowners and businesses in Topanga and Malibu to lose tenants, to lose revenue. They're just having trouble with all of the impacts, even if their business wasn't taken out in the fire or by mudslide or otherwise impacted. The road closures are causing them big problems, and it's lost revenue. It's very complicated for them, and so they need help with mortgage forbearance, extensions, deferrals. So from DCBA's perspective, whatever's in your purview, what tools do you have available to help people in this circumstance?
Of course. Thank you so much for repeating the question. So on our side, we do have the foreclosure prevention unit that can help landlords who are falling behind on their mortgages or unable to pay their mortgages as a result of losing tenants or being affected by the fires. Any affected individual can call our 800 number and be connected to our foreclosure prevention department, who can help in the process if they are facing a foreclosure. Additionally, Governor Newsom did announce that the state is working with the major lenders for mortgage relief for those affected by the fires. And then there are over 400 financial institutions that are also working with landlords or homeowners in the impacted areas to get some kind of mortgage relief. Also, the Department of Financial Protections and Innovation has a website that has a list of all of the financial institutions. I will drop it in the chat for individuals if they want to go and look to see if what financial institutions are on the list. And what we do also offer within the department is mediation. So if you do want to use mediation to talk to your mortgage lender or negotiate something there, you can also do that as well. That's pretty much it on our end.
Okay, I'm going to go next to our assessor's office. Do you have any tools available for people in this circumstance who've been impacted because of the road closure, their businesses are impacted?
Sure. So what we generally do when we provide misfortune and calamity relief is we look at impacts to value, and certainly we consider that any impedance to egress and ingress to the property itself is an impact to value, and so we will take that into consideration when we provide the relief.
Okay, and so is there some specific way people should be able to access that assistance from you?
Yeah, so the best thing to do is to make sure you file a claim for misfortune and calamity with us. You can go onto our website. It's right on the front page, assessor.lacounty.gov. File the claim. If you've already filed a claim, we will be looking at factors, especially in the Palisades, for ingress and egress to the properties as an impact on value. We will already be doing that for you proactively.
Okay, and how about our insurance commissioner?
So as far as insurance goes, I mean, under by law, under a state of emergency, insurance companies offer a 60-day grace period for payments of premiums at the very least. For residential properties, it doesn't apply to commercial properties, unfortunately. So residential owners can kind of have that grace period while they're still figuring things out with their income wise and things like that. As far as commercial properties though go, it's possible they may be able to file a claim with their insurance carrier for loss of use for their business suffering that loss of business with those road closures and things like that. I can't guarantee that, but they can always try with their insurance carrier and filing a claim for loss of use.
Okay. Um, I'm going to come back to Army Corps. For lots that were deferred by EPA to phase 2, so phase 1 deferred, when will the Army Corps tracker show that phase 1 is complete? It looks like the public viewer is not working. Can that be fixed?
That is something that I will follow up with my team internally on. We are working on the phase 1 deferred by EPA properties. So we are going in and removing HHM, working that actively. So the viewer, I will report that back and see if we can get that updated.
Okay. This one is both Army Corps and Public Works. My ROE form has been with Public Works for 2 months. Can you explain why it's taken this long? Can the process be streamlined?
Thank you for that question. So we're making good progress on the ROEs. To date, a total of 4,000 ROEs were transmitted to Army Corps, and we expect to transmit as many as a total of 5,000 over the next few days. So what we've done to accelerate this process is we now have about 250 people working on ROEs, which is a huge ramp up. And our goal is to do 200 or more ROEs per day. So currently we're working on issues like the more complex ROEs where it's missing information due to complicated trust and LLC situations. This is when the case managers will reach out to the property owner to get information so that we can transmit it over to the Army Corps.
Okay, well, we want a daily report on the progress because I know this is a question we get asked a lot. And I think that, I appreciate that you're going through a number of complicated factors and you have to confirm ownership through all of what you just described. In some cases, there's been a lot of back and forth on the same application. So that delays being able to move on to the next ROE form to confirm, if it's missing a signature or missing information. But at the end of the day, for somebody's form to be with you for 2 months and they still don't even have an idea of if it's being processed, that doesn't work. So we got to keep these moving and make sure that they're getting to U.S. Army Corps. It sounds like they're also still ramping up. They only have about 50 teams out there. So there's also that component of it. But I just, can't stress enough that we can't be our own roadblocks to progress. And so I want to make sure that we are giving you all the tools that you need to be moving smoothly, safely, and swiftly to get this work done. I'm going to go to public health next. How long will we need to wait until toxins are at a minimum and no longer affect our health?
Yeah, thank you so much, Supervisor Horvath, for having me, and thank you to everybody for joining us tonight. It's a great question. There's no easy answer. In part, there's no easy answer because it depends on where you live. Whether you're in a burn area, whether you're adjacent to a burn area, and whether you're downstream or upstream from burn areas, because as everyone has noted, there is still a lot of fire debris on many of the properties that were most affected by the fires. As long as that fire debris is present and it's not contained in an appropriate landfill or hazardous waste site, it can blow around when there's winds. It can get moved around as part of debris removal. Everybody's being super careful, but it still gets moved around. And there can be, because of that, some limited exposures. I want to also note every time we have big rainstorms and debris flows down, as everyone has seen, it can flow into our oceans and affect our waterways. So I think a better way to think about what's happening here is that there are lots of protections that are being taken to minimize exposure. As I've noted, the most important thing is to limit your exposure to fire debris and to help do your part on containing fire debris that may still be on your property. We have government programs for homes that are completely burnt or partially destroyed. Lots of people had ash and still have ash on properties that are adjacent and are removing it either themselves or through contractors. Please abide by the public works regulations about safely removing fire debris, because the last thing we want to be doing is stirring up a lot of debris. That's one way that it gets into more people's soil, and another way it can get back into the air. I do want to reassure people, though, that there has been, in particular, a significant amount of air quality monitoring that has not indicated causes for alarm. Yes, there are some elevated levels from where we have seen them in the past, but nothing has met a dangerous threshold. And now, as everyone knows, there are 3 permanent air quality monitoring stations in the Eaton fire burn area and 2 in the Palisades area, along with the fact that there were mobile air monitoring, and along with the fact that AQMD does additional air monitoring, and we have some academic partners and government partners that are continuing to do air monitoring. And I also want to tell people that the results of all of these air monitoring, water monitoring, soil monitoring are posted on our website. So we post what the assessments are, we post what people are looking at, and then as results come in, we either link to those results, if they're on somebody else's website, or we include them on our website. So I urge people to go to ph.lacounty.org to follow the results. I think the reassuring information right now is, while we will continue to have exposures, we've explained what steps we each can take. We've explained all of the precautions that are being taken by those who are charged with debris removal. And we are doing extra monitoring to make sure that we're aware if there are elevated and concerning levels. And we're sharing all that information. This will be completely transparent. When we see information that's concerning, we'll be the first ones to let everybody know.
I'm glad you're sharing that information, because it does help, for those who are able to really dig into all those details in terms of transparency. But for the layperson who's worried, like they're never going to be able to go back to their neighborhood because it's never actually going to be really clear of hazardous material, that it's never really going to be safe for their kids to play on a playground or in a park, like, what is the rough time? Like, is it never going to go back to normal? Is there going to be some sense of normal on some general period of time? Like, can you give a little bit more context in layman's terms?
I think the issue is, instead of normal, let's just talk about customary, because many of these sites already have some low levels of pollution. Much of our soil does. And what we really want to do is get to a place where the protections we're taking are minimizing the exposures. And that's already happening, and I think will continue to happen. In those areas that are in the heart of the burn, it will take a little bit longer. It'll take longer to get the debris removed. As you know, there are things that we can do to minimize exposures to pollutants, even if you're not in a burn area. And we're all going to be doing that as part of the rebuild. So people are going to be looking at putting in new soil. Schools that have reopened have done a great job clearing out their outdoor areas and making them safe, removing sand from sandboxes, putting down lots of layers of topsoil where that was appropriate. So I want to reassure people that, yes, these communities can be rebuilt, and they can be rebuilt safely It will take some time, but we are talking about months, not decades.
And are you giving people, are you giving that guidance? Because I've heard from people actually outside of the Palisades area that um, they didn't receive guidance. So they're just kind of going in and doing what they think is safe to bring kids back into a school or, to bring people back into, a community setting. And so is there direct guidance from public health
Yes.
on that?
There's lots of guidance. It's again on our website. It's also on the county's recovery website. It's specific guidance for going back to your home, specific guidance for going back for schools. We work closely with schools around remediation, specific guidance for folks that may be going and using parks and public lands. So I urge people to look. We also do specific health related town halls every about, once a week or once every 2 weeks, where again, we spend an hour and a half with experts answering everyone's questions. I urge you to go to our website, look. Our next one will be a week from Thursday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Very easy to connect to us, and we spend most of our time answering your questions.
All right. Our next question, as a Pacific Palisades HOA homeowner with an underinsured debris removal policy, who can help cover the additional costs beyond what my HOA provides? Will the Army Corps of Engineers offer any assistance?
Yes, so if this is in regards to insurance, Corps of Engineers would not be the best person to answer that. Maybe someone from the insurance team or county would be able to better answer that.
Yeah, we can talk about the insurance component next, but the heart of the question is, that process, if they're under it, I'll talk to the insurance team about that. But is there any version where that assistance is done by the Army Corps of Engineers in that case?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah. As a Pacific Palisades HOA homeowner with an underinsured debris removal policy, who can help cover the additional costs beyond what my HOA provides? Will the Army Corps of Engineers offer any assistance with the removal?
Yes, so if this individual owns their home and it is a private property eligible for the program, we would still go in, remove debris, complete phase 2 debris removals, and then any insurance would be handled by the county later.
When you say the insurance piece, you mean the collection of insurance?
Correct. Yeah. So Corps of Engineers does not get involved in that portion of it.
So since this is a homeowner in an HOA, that HOA and the homeowner should both submit ROEs, and you will determine eligibility and whether the work is possible to be done by the Army Corps.
Yeah. So that would be something that we would need to get additional guidance on.
Okay. And then from the insurance commissioner's office.
Yeah. I mean, so it would still.
Is there any additional, who can help cover additional costs?
Well, if it is covered by the Army Corps of Engineers in the program, then of course there wouldn't be any additional cost. But I believe if their debris removal coverage is not, if their property is just not eligible for that, and their debris removal is not enough, I believe that's where they may be able to apply with FEMA for additional funding to cover that gap that the insurance company can't. And I know FEMA has some resources to provide for in certain cases where they're uninsured, and this could possibly be one of them.
Okay. So they should still apply to FEMA. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Back to U.S. Army Corps. Will our block be skipped if we have a neighbor who hasn't submitted an ROE?
No. So we are we're doing debris removal on a parcel by parcel basis. So it is not based off of neighborhood or street. It is truly parcel by parcel. So as we get those ROEs in, we will move forward with our site assessments and then eventually our debris removal. So truly parcel by parcel.
Okay. And the last question is for DCBA. If we receive an LA County grant fund, how will it be received? Is it a check? Is it a direct deposit to my bank account? How will people receive that financial assistance?
So sorry, I'm trying to unmute. It's my understanding that when they're applying for the grant, there is a request for bank account information so they could provide the direct deposit into the bank account. But I believe if they don't have that, most likely a check. But I can confirm and respond if there's anything different.
Okay. I'm now going to sort of go through all of our folks who are represented here today to ask how people can follow up with you. I'm going to start with FEMA. Is our FEMA representative still on? Yes, I see Roxanne.
Sorry, just trying to get to the little camera thing. Hi, this is Roxanne Crawford with FEMA. And of course, we just want to remind people that the registration deadline has been extended. So people can continue to register with FEMA through March 31st. One of the things that's been coming up a lot is people have been kind of deciding for themselves that they may or may not be eligible. And what we would encourage people to do is if they've been impacted to go ahead and register. Just today, I heard the regional administrator, Bob Fenton, talking about how things can change down the road. So you may not be eligible right now for assistance because, say, your insurance is paying for you to stay somewhere. But if you run out of those funds, it may change your situation even a year down the road. So we'd encourage people to register so that they may have those options later on if the situation changes. The other thing we're encouraging people to do is to really look closely at the letters and communication that they receive from FEMA. Sometimes those can be a little confusing. A lot of times they'll say denied on that letter, but they may not mean you're denied forever. They may mean that they need additional information from your insurance or from other sources in order to continue to process that. If you have questions or concerns about those letters or communications you receive from FEMA, you can call that FEMA helpline. I see the number's been placed in the chat. That's 1-800-621-3362. You can also visit one of the disaster recovery centers, and that's absolutely the best way because you can sit with someone and talk to them about your individual application. And of course, there's lots of other groups and organizations at those centers that may be able to provide other assistance. You can also register at one of those disaster recovery centers. You can register online, and you can register on the FEMA app, which is also great to have on hand. And I'll place the information into the chat, or I'll send it so that, oh, there it is. FEMA assistance recovery.lacounty.gov, and that'll tell you where those locations are. You can also find those disaster recovery center locations on the FEMA app.
Okay, that's recovery.lacounty.gov/FEMA assistance. And thank you for being with us tonight. I'm going to go next to U.S. Army Corps. How can people follow up with you directly?
Sure. So the best place to go is going to be our debris call center. We have a great team of people available 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. 7 days a week. And that number, we can probably get it placed in the chat too, is 213-308-8305. So that would be the best place to follow up.
Okay. And I know we're going to be following up because I'm going to ask Colonel Swenson about what changed on the townhomes and on the condos. I see in the Q&A that there's frustration around the lack of clarity and what's changed and why. So I will be following up with the Colonel in my office, and I will make sure that my office is putting that information out to our residents to understand how that's happening. It sounds tonight's explanation says if you are in this circumstance, you should still submit an ROE because they're making those determinations based on the information that you're submitting. So anyone who is a condo owner, the HOA and the individual condo owners, plus and also our townhome owners, submit your ROEs. I will make sure that we are working with Public Works to identify those applications and that we're working with our U.S. Army Corps partners to understand what the next steps are going to be for you because we can't have you living with lack of clarity. I'm going to go next to SBA.
Thank you, Supervisor Horvath. Quickly, like my FEMA counterparts, the SBA loan program application deadline has also been extended to March 31st. So we want to make sure everyone's aware of that. And we still encourage them to apply as soon as possible. The ways to find out more about SBA's programs or get questions answers are to go to one of the disaster recovery centers to speak with someone in person. They can also call the hotline, which is 1-800-659-2955. Or they can email disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. And our main website is always sba.gov/disaster.
Okay, thank you very much. Cal OES.
Hello, Supervisor. Can you repeat the question? We lost audio for a second.
We just want to know how people can be in touch with you if they have any questions.
Yeah, so they can definitely follow us on their socials, but in addition, they can go to ca.gov/LA Fires, and they will find a bunch of different resources there to get in touch with whatever state agency or partner they need.
Okay, and if they just go on social media and they search Cal OES, they'll find you?
It's at Cal OES, yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Caltrans.
Hi, you can follow Caltrans, Caltrans District 7, which covers Los Angeles and Ventura counties, on social media. We have our Caltrans website as well. And my contact information was previously shared in the chat. That's my direct cell phone and email address.
Very good. Thank you. California Department of Insurance.
Yeah, so again, thank you for having me, Supervisor. You can always contact us at the Department of Insurance with any insurance-related questions at 1-800-927-4357 or insurance.ca.gov, or we have somebody always at the Disaster Recovery Center. But I also wanted to mention, you mentioned earlier about the insurance workshop we had at the Skirball Center. We are having another one this coming Saturday in Pasadena at John Muir High School, Saturday, March 15th, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. I know, especially in the chat, at these meetings, we get a lot of questions about the FAIR Plan, and we have a team of the FAIR Plan representatives there. I know they're hard to get hold of, so if you want to speak to the FAIR Plan in person, give us a call, make an appointment, and come see us at the workshop this weekend.
All right. LA County Public Works. How can people follow up with you?
Yes, the best way to follow up with us on ROEs is either by email or phone. The email address is roe@dpw.lacounty.gov. And then the debris removal hotline is 844-347-3332. Thank you.
All right. And LA County Public Health. Is Dr. Ferrer still with us? I think she shared some information on how to access their website. We'll go to Captain C2.
Hi, you can come and visit us at the Disaster Relief Center. You can also visit us at the station 24/7, and our station number is 818-878-1808, and you follow us on our social media as well.
Thank you, Captain. We appreciate all of our partners being here tonight, answering questions, and most importantly, helping us in this work so we stay on the same page and most importantly, moving forward. I really appreciate everyone who joined us tonight. We will be following up on those outstanding questions, and we'll be back here next Wednesday evening to answer even more. Thank you very much. Please stay safe and stay in touch.